What's going on, fish? Welcome back to your favorite pond, the Coy Pond, episode 64, and we are back in studio, baby.
And better than ever.
Better than ever. Joined by old K-Dog himself. Wow. As always, it's your host with the most, Mr. C. Yes.
The man with the plan.
In the glory. As always. As always, you can find us on YouTube, is where you probably found this video now that I'm saying it out loud. Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. And always submit your questions to SpeakPipe. And today, for the first time in a while, we actually have a SpeakPipe question.
That's what we call a doozy.
Yes, without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into that. Start it off.
Let us begin in the beginning.
And we're just gonna roll. We're just gonna roll.
Colin and Kevin, great job this past season with the podcast, but I gotta ask you guys, Kevin, as a Cowboys fan, how does it feel seeing the Eagles in the Super Bowl, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, all the all-star names, smashing your team, going up for the ring? On the flip, Colin, how does it feel for you that the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, your division rival? Does America lose with this Super Bowl matchup?
Anonymous. I'll keep it anonymous, just for the sake of that's how you submitted it. To cap off the end of that question,
yes,
with this Super Bowl, America does in fact lose. I can safely say this was the doomsday scenario, and it occurred. We'll get into how they got there later in the video in this episode, as always. Speaking from my own opinion, because mine's a little bit of a shorter answer, I'd imagine. The Chargers went into this season with a rebuild mentality mixed with the Chiefs have beaten our ass, and I don't have the stats in front of me, a lot in the last 3 to 4 years. It's no surprise that the Chiefs whooped on the Chargers pretty comfortably. I think there might have been one close game in there. The other one might not have been so close. I'm kind of blacked out this season a little bit after the Texans game. It was no surprise the Chiefs were going to do good against the Chargers, and, to be quite frank, if they're going to get to the Super Bowl, at least I can say the Chargers repeatedly lose to the team that's about to three-peat. It doesn't hurt quite as bad, given Brandon Staley was 3 of the last 4 years. So looking at it that way, it doesn't feel great, but it does give you an insight during the regular season about how are the Chargers stacking up against teams that legitimately could win the Super Bowl. It doesn't bother me as much. The matchup does more, to be honest. But as a Chargers fan, it sucks, but it's nothing new because the Chiefs have won it so much recently. It'd be like the Bills. Maybe the Bills or Jets in the last 20 years losing to the Patriots as much as they had. Yeah. It's kind of to be expected for the time being, while the Patriots were on that run they were on. Mm-hmm. I don't know. How do you feel about the Eagles being in the Super Bowl?
The championship game was a really interesting thing because, except for Matt, who probably didn't even predict that far.
No, he said that was a long shot in itself.
But he was spot on for saying that the Commanders would beat out the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And they did. And if you'd asked me at the start of the season, hey, the NFC East is going to have both teams in the championship game.
That part blows my mind.
And neither one of them is the Cowboys, I would have been shocked as hell.
Going into this season with Dak healthy and whatnot, there was a much different vibe, giving the running back game, and this is just from memory, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The Cowboys had a legitimate chance, defensively, offensively, minus the running game, that they could put up a fight in this season. Before the season started, I should say.
It just goes to show, to Matt's point, probably what he was looking at is, Dan Quinn did a great job with Dallas, left when the Packers blew out the Cowboys, took the Commanders' job, took a lot of talent with him, actually.
He actually did.
And probably a lot of veteran talent. Mm-hmm. And now that you see it on the other side, you see that inexperience in Dallas showed up in losing more games, showed up in Washington winning more games. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget that Jaden Daniels was just a miracle rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's ever been a better rookie quarterback in terms of where they got
success in general.
So it's difficult to swallow a pill.
Yes.
The silver lining for me is, I don't want the Chiefs to three-peat because no one's three-peated.
Right.
I think the Eagles have the best chance to beat the Chiefs and keep them from three-peating, which matters to me.
Right.
And I will throw in there that Kellen Moore, the former offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, is now the same for the Eagles.
Yep.
Good on him.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, to me, Saquon Barkley,
yes,
who that poor guy for being in New York, the Giants all this time and not having success or even close to what he's had this year.
Right.
The guy is an exceptional talent, an exceptional human being by everybody you hear talk about him in the NFL and around just in the world in general. Mm-hmm. And if there's one person that deserves to win a Super Bowl who's been through hell and back,
yes,
it's Saquon Barkley, and I can suck up my cowboy-ness to allow him to get that done because the guy is just incredibly talented, as we all have seen. Mm-hmm. And so if he can take out the Chiefs and get his Super Bowl win at the same time, I can suck it up to let the Eagles win.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's the same vibe as Stafford when he was on the Rams, and unfortunately it was the Bengals. You know, it's like, let the poor bastard have one.
Exactly.
For everything they've done for whatever city.
Yep.
So that's how I feel.
That's a great anonymous question. Thank you, Mr. Anonymous.
Yes, Mr.
And it really is a great one because it is directly relevant to both of your hosts here as well.
Yes.
So
you see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But speak back question of the week. If you have any questions, we will answer any and all of them.
Anything.
Link in the description. Don't forget that along with everything else.
Anything. Anything. When it comes to stewed prunes, are 3 enough or 4 too many?
Yeah, or menu items around the Dayton area. What do you think you should be eating on that menu?
That's right.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, let's talk Marion's Pizza if you want to do that.
Maybe.
We're always up for talking about food.
That might have to be an off-season video now that we're saying it out loud.
So,
also put a comment on the video for what you want to see in the off-season. We're slowly putting together a list, and we'll figure that out down the road. Nevertheless, championship weekend was kind of, as Anonymous would say, a doomsday scenario.
Yes.
To put it lightly.
Yes.
This is the matchup I didn't want to see.
Yeah.
By any means of the word.
Can you feel any worse for one Josh Allen?
That needs to be understood.
That guy, I mean, you can see how badly he wants to win and get beyond the Chiefs. That and is Sean McDermott? You've had consistency where you're getting, but you're not getting over the hump.
Yeah.
Do you change a coach there? Don't you change a coach there? That's a high level of consistency, but you got Josh Allen. And if you can't get over the hump with Josh Allen, maybe you consider it. I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Yes.
When you watch that guy play the game, he plays it with such heart. How can you not root for him? And when it comes up short, again, thanks in part to the refs, and I don't care what you say, that was a damn first down. At least one of them was.
Yes.
Maybe both.
Yes.
But Josh Allen, you just feel for him. The guy is just heartbroken, destroyed.
Out all.
It still manages to be that professional, high-quality caliber guy that he always is, even in the moment of doom. It's incredible.
I'm going to say it. I didn't hate the Phillip Rivers take.
What was that? Let's hear it.
Josh Allen is kind of slowly turning into. And I'm not saying the window's closed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're identical by any means. But Josh Allen passed Phillip Rivers on the all-time playoffs without a Super Bowl win.
Did he really?
List.
Oh, dear God.
And, I'm not also saying Josh Allen's bad. He's probably got another 10 years in the NFL if he wants it, at least. But the Sean McDermott is what I'm really getting at. They might need to consider. This is 4 times now.
They've
lost.
Right?
They've lost in the postseason. 4 times to the Chiefs.
Yep.
How does Steve Spagnuolo keep throwing out new shit at you? I didn't play football, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating on the outside looking in, which I can only imagine what it's like in that building after that loss.
Yeah.
Because that is essentially Super Bowl Part 1 for the Bills.
Yeah.
You have to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah. And you got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't have talent around him now. I mean,
he brings wide receivers. He raises them.
He brings them up.
Yes.
And they're fighters like him.
Mm-hmm.
They mirror his personality.
Yes.
And James Cook, same thing. Hard, tough runner.
Yep.
The talent is all there. It's almost like they alone now could get to that point by themselves.
It feels that way.
and they just need a little boost of something new, something different. I don't know what it is, but they need to try something, because what's going to happen is they're going to keep doing the same shit, getting the same result, and then his career's going to be over, and they're going to be like, we wasted it.
Yeah. Now we have a number one defense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And to be honest, it's not a blur, but you can't be within a touchdown of the Chiefs at all in the fourth quarter. You need to have that 8 points or more.
Yeah.
Because you just have to anticipate how well coached those players are. That's where the penalties start becoming it's rigged for the Chiefs. I agree. A lot of those calls were ticky-tacky, and that's not how you want a game to end.
Yeah.
However, Josh Allen still got that ball out, and Kincaid still dropped it.
True.
Mark Andrews got an enormous amount of shit, given he did drop a 2-point conversion and a pretty open ball, or a fumble.
Yep.
But I haven't heard as much flack for Kincaid as I have for Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
And while I'm not saying one is more important than the other, because they both lost big games, and maybe that's Minnesota Vikings PI that didn't get called, and then the next year it happened to them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the Bills equivalent when it happened to the Ravens with Mark Andrews.
Makes sense.
But it's like, going in that game, you can't keep it within a referee score.
Right. That's right.
And I don't know.
You're playing with fire.
Yeah, and it's the Chiefs. I'm not saying there's a way to do it.
Right.
But I am saying the game plan has to be you need to go up and continue going up on them.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't know what the Bills need to do differently other than somehow just not allow Xavier Worthy to catch a pass or run a ball.
Yeah. I mean, that guy ultimately had his best game in the biggest game.
Yep.
Which
is horrifying, because they all their receivers except him are veterans.
Wait till Tyreek Hill comes back.
Oh, please God.
That's next. That's going to happen. And they're just salivating over that one. Yeah. Tyreek will take a pay cut to get back on a team, just in that scenario.
I'm convinced.
And good God, look out.
We'll see what happens.
Again, your AFC West has already turned into a nightmare division coaching-wise.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But that Bills-Chiefs game, I was hoping, just like, I can't remember what player tweeted out, but somebody needs to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Didn't happen there.
No.
And it's a bit frustrating that the Bills couldn't get it done, because I think everyone kind of wanted Josh Allen finally to get a chance at the Super Bowl. And once again, he's paywalled by the Chiefs.
And moving on to the next game, the Commanders had the script that they needed. They needed to score first.
Yep.
They ended up settling for a field goal after a nice drive. Mm-hmm. And then they did what they weren't allowed to do under any circumstances, and that was give Saquon Barkley a huge hole to run through.
Yeah.
Trying to mob tackling him instead of maintaining discipline. And it was just shitty tackling ultimately. Because when he hit the cylinders on that thing,
he turned the corner on that block.
Oh my God, he's fucking gone. That guy, again, I mean, you get juked once and there's nothing behind you, you are screwed. He's going to go 80 yards every time he touches the ball. He looks faster now than he has since college to me.
I would agree, and I think that we're finally seeing Saquon run with purpose to an extent of he sees that the Super Bowl is within reach.
Will Shipley scored when he was out of the game in the second half. Saquon Barkley is such the guy that he went running out on the field to congratulate Shipley. And that's just the guy he is. And good God, he's having fun. And watching how he plays, the energy he has, he's pulled up Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, who never looks excited at all, and is always battling with Nick Sirianni about something.
And competitively always looks like he's missing throws.
Yeah. And
it's complimenting him.
Tremendously. Saquon has made them forget all about that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Kellen Moore, when you got to get a play, hand it off to Barkley and block the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And it's over.
It really is.
I mean, it's as dominating as I remember, like the Cowboys in the 90s with Emmett. And it almost looked so easy. It was like, just hand the ball off. And you get in trouble.
It's ridiculous, and they definitely exposed that Commanders defense for what it was, and that was pretty much the game after that, to be honest. It was you hate to see it. I also kind of felt like, the Commanders got lucky with a Buccaneers team that didn't look like it was worth a damn. The Lions team that rested 1 week and couldn't figure life out. I kind of felt like the Eagles were going to be that brick wall that kind of woke you up. He's a rookie quarterback, amazing rookie season. But, I mean, that Commanders defense, I don't think really stood a chance in that game.
No.
Because once you're behind with the Eagles and they can run the ball, it's over.
Yeah.
I think they had 7 rushing touchdowns.
They did, a new record.
Was it new record?
New record, yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and I think Hurts had 3. I think Saquon had 3, and then a few other people had something. But, again, the Eagles' defense, I mean, Davis, Carter, Deshaun, Blankenship. Mm-hmm. I know Mitchell, I think the corner that they drafted, Deshaun and him are both rookies, for crying out loud.
It's insane.
And they have them playing at a high level right now.
Carter on the line.
Yeah, I mean, he's a beast. And he's a very smart, huge man.
Yes.
That guy always comes up with some smart play that you don't see many people doing, no one his size.
No.
But Commanders, great season.
Yes.
Rookie head coach.
Success by a mile.
Rookie or first-time head coach. I guess he's been a head coach before, so that means
as of late.
His first-time head coach of the Commanders. Rookie quarterback. Mm-hmm. To get all the way to the championship game, nobody would have ever, 4-12 or 4-13 the year before to the championship game. Just incredible.
And not to mention, you made Dan Snyder vocally mad, which I found to be hilarious. And I heard that apparently Gruden hit him with like a $60 million fine on the way out so that the group that was going to buy the Commanders could buy the Commanders.
Really?
So Goodell got you with the old FU on the way out. I think everybody obviously was pissed at Snyder at the time. So hearing it come out that he's actually mad about the whole thing is kind of amazing. Amazing enough that I was rooting for Eckler in that game.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah. And we're... Let's move on to coaching hires. We'll hit the Senior Bowl after that.
Yeah.
But what you just said about Schneider on the way out kind of is a nice segue to coaching.
Yeah, for sure.
So, again, he's happy. They lost. They got killed. He hated they were doing well without him. A bitter, prick.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, so the Cowboys this week hired Brian Schottenheimer.
Yes.
Brian Schottenheimer is the son of legendary head coach Marty Schottenheimer.
Yep.
Who never won a Super Bowl.
Nope.
But he did coach the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
He also coached for Dan Snyder with the Commanders.
Oh, that's funny.
And so they had a falling out because Marty Schottenheimer was bigger than life. Same reason he got fired with the Chargers and then got fired with the Commanders for the same reason, because Dan Snyder felt like he was second to Marty even though he owned the team.
It's such a crazy idea.
So now we have Brian Schottenheimer with the Cowboys.
Maybe.
We have Matt Eberflus from the Bears.
Yep.
Back with the Cowboys again, now as the defensive coordinator.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Could be a really good hire for that role.
I would agree. You look back at the Bears the last 5 years, the defense has been manageable, I think, was most of the time, and the offense was always struggling with O-line and whatnot.
Yeah.
Eberflus taking a step back, probably a good move.
And for Brian Schottenheimer, who has no head coaching experience,
having him in the pocket, not a terrible idea.
Not a terrible idea. Soren Stan, who was the defensive coordinator of the 49ers last year, is now the Cowboys special teams coach.
I don't hate that.
So not a bad hire there either.
49ers defense up till this year had looked pretty good. Obviously, Brandon Staley was a part of that. He was part of that. Sala was a part of that.
Exactly. But just to quickly touch, since we're Cowboys Chargers here, the Marty Schottenheimer background for his son coming to the Cowboys.
Right.
I just happened to be watching an old Chargers Cowboys game the other day, and it shocked the hell out of me. Marty Schottenheimer is the head coach of the Chargers in the game in 2007, 2008. Bill Parcells is the head coach of the Cowboys at the time.
Wow.
And lo and behold, on the sidelines is Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator at the time for Marty Schottenheimer.
Oh, my God.
And Wade Phillips became the head coach of the Cowboys around 2010, something like that, I think. So it was just wild to see all these...
the way they cross over between the Chargers and Cowboys back and forth.
The crossover between there was crazy. And here, just real quick, is here's a list of some of the assistant coaches that Marty Schottenheimer had on his staffs over the years. Bill Cowher.
Oh, my God.
Tony Dungy.
Yep.
Herm Edwards. Mike McCarthy.
Oh, my God.
Art Shell, legendary tackle for the Raiders and then head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Sperano, legendary offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. Hugh Jackson, Bruce Arians.
Wow.
Mark Trestman, and Brian Schottenheimer, his son.
Wow.
But, man, if you don't think Marty Schottenheimer was the real deal.
Yeah, he was.
He is a legendary head coach that developed a lot of assistants. And I heard Ross Tucker, who played for the Cowboys, the Redskins, 4 other teams. He was on the Fan in Dallas and said that he played for Bill Parcells. He played for Bill Belichick, legendary coaches. And he said by far, in terms of how he handled his players, his team, the best coach was Marty Schottenheimer.
Wow.
Despite the fact that he never won a Super Bowl.
Huh.
And so, again, it's pretty wild to see this moment come for him, and we'll see what happens for him in Dallas.
Lord, if he has the slightest bit of excellence or touch from his dad.
And if the 2 idiots down there running the team, Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, can get out of his way, he may actually be a really good hire.
You know, I don't hate hiring within. I know they caught a lot of flack for not bringing in a couple different guys.
Yeah.
But you know what? If he's young enough and the dad's anyway involved or around, it may not be a terrible idea.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the dad passed away.
Oh.
Yep. But Jerry said it in an interesting way, osmosis. He's been around football all his life.
True.
And to learn from a legendary coach, and then to hear this kind of reputation, interesting. We'll see what happens.
It has more hopes to it than a lot of different people around the sports world have given it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Once again, it's the NFL. Who fucking knows?
Exactly.
Quite frankly, we've seen as many shots in the dark hit as we have miss.
Adam Schefter put it really well. He said, hiring a head coach is a lot like a first-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
You do your homework, you evaluate it, you try to see if there's a fit, but you won't know.
Right.
There's no guarantee, and you won't know for years to come whether it was successful or not.
So
I thought that was a great analogy.
Completely agree.
Let's go to your AFC West to talk about the coaching there.
Oh, yeah. So Pete Carroll is back in the coaching world, similar to, we almost forgot Vrabel to the Patriots.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah. Oh, I'm cut this part out.
That's all right.
While we write it down.
No, that's a good one.
Pete Carroll to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Marshawn Lynch hyped up in the presser, yelling Raiders, I think.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Pete Carroll knew who that was in the moment. And then they met afterwards, and that's when he figured it out.
He's like, hey, let's calm down a little bit out there. He didn't even at that moment know it was Marshawn Lynch.
I mean, I'm assuming Pete Carroll has to give Marshawn Lynch like sideline Skittles man or something,
yeah.
And the NFL would be better with Marshawn Lynch on a sideline somewhere, in my opinion.
And you know that Marshawn Lynch hated Pete Carroll for the decision to throw against the Patriots in that Super Bowl instead of hand it off. I've heard people talk about that all across the airwaves and say they made the exact right call based on the defense. It should have been a throw.
Yes,
just to say that. So,
and clearly Marshawn still cares about him.
Yes, which is wild to see.
Yes, him showing up in the presser, I think, puts to bed any sort of idea. And I don't know if Marshawn Lynch has talked about it. I'm sure he has.
He has
times.
Yeah,
but nevertheless, if Pete Carroll gets Marshawn Lynch on the sideline, I think that would be hilarious.
I agree.
And quite frankly, for the Raiders, I don't hate the Pete Carroll hire.
No, at all.
And supposedly there's a lot of beef between Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll, which means this Chargers-Raiders rivalry has just stepped it up a notch with 2 old men fighting for it.
Big time renewed, and then you still got the other 2 guys going on there too. So
exactly.
Sean Payton, and who's the other one?
Oh, Andy Reid.
Yeah, Andy Reid. So, I mean, what a division.
The AFC West has just instantly become one of the craziest coaching divisions in the NFL, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Just given pre-existing history.
Yeah, I mean, Miami of Ohio is called the cradle of coaches. The AFC West should be called the Hall of Fame of coaches or something like that.
The cradle of something. I can tell you that. Over the age of 65, maybe. But it's insane. Who knows what the Raiders look like next year. I'm hoping they can backseat one more year and give the Chargers a chance to have a shot.
God.
That's never here nor there. Raiders got a great coach, Pete Carroll, in my opinion, if you can't get Vrabel
Completely
at that
agree.
point. Which leads very nicely into Patriots picking up Mike Vrabel coming back in the coaching circuit.
Happy to see him back.
And Josh McDaniels, is that his name? Is
that's right.
Offense coordinator. And
back
they brought
again.
back someone else's defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think so.
Can't remember who, but Mike Vrabel's a fucking football guy.
Yeah, and
that horrifies me.
Yeah, I really wish Dallas would have picked him up, but Mike Vrabel back with the Patriots, where he belongs.
Yes.
The kind of guy that can turn that program around. He's got a great young quarterback, which he never had in Tennessee.
No.
And I think that Robert Kraft is going to be very supportive of Patriot legend coming back and coaching.
And Josh McDaniels, I don't think did a terrible job when he was there. When he went off and head coached himself, I think that's when he became terrible.
Sucked. Yeah.
So I think him being back is going to be a comfortable reunion for him.
Yeah.
Which kind of horrifies me because I like Drake May.
Yeah.
He didn't maybe have a Pro Bowl season like he just has gotten announced to be.
Yeah.
Pro Bowl doesn't mean shit anymore. But he didn't look as bad as what it could have been given the Patriot offense around him at the time.
Yeah.
They do have some weapons, and I think it's Demario Douglas, and I don't know if something Bourne is still there.
Yeah, Kendrick Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah.
And that defense wasn't the worst thing ever.
No, it wasn't
I don't
at all.
think they're as far away from being, a 10-7, 9-8 team as it might seem. We'll have to see. It's horrifying. That's a great pickup for Patriots fans. There's no way you can be disappointed.
And let's talk about Ben Johnson head to the Bears, because
that rattled some feathers.
Yeah, and let's talk about the negative of that. Detroit.
Yeah.
So Detroit, has the wheels come off, is all you can say.
Kind of, as far as coaching goes.
And now we've lost Ben Johnson, and we'll get to Aaron Glenn in a minute, the defensive coordinator. So they made it all the way to the divisional playoffs, had an incredible, one-loss record?
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah.
And now you got to deal with your OC, your DC going away, and you're kind of starting over.
It feels like that a little bit. Obviously, Dan Campbell's going to bring in guys that he likes. I can't really remember where Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn came from originally.
Yeah.
In the cycle of, did they get rid of someone after the first year? Did they stay on? What have you? Ben Johnson obviously been incredible for them for at least the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
We're going to find out what kind of coach Dan Campbell is real quick. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm simply saying this is the first time we've heard of the Lions having success and having to deal with this.
Yeah.
You could tell by the fans on Twitter that have never had a coach poached before.
Yeah.
Because they felt like it was a complete betrayal where this is not a business.
No.
And we'll get into a complete betrayal maybe at the end of this list. But absolutely going to be a do-over.
Part of the whole thing.
I feel like anybody can comfortably figure out that defense and offense because they do have pieces. Yes, they were really hurt.
Right.
And, no one on that team was terrible in that sense. A lot of people had to step up to get that team where it was.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to watch.
I remember, the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl in the early 90s, and, Norv Turner got poached, and, he went to Washington.
Right.
We also had the defensive coordinator back then get poached, and he went to the Bears. So, and the players are still the players. If you can get somebody half decent to come in, you can still maintain that continuity, but it does also feel kind of scary too.
It's a different world for them for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe it does take a few weeks next season. It feels like the world's ending, then they go 10-3 after going 1-3 or something like that.
So it's going to be interesting to see how do the Bears do. I'm sure they'll be better.
Right.
Ben Johnson is sharp.
Bears, social media team for the Chicago Bears, a little goofy for the videos they put out. I thought it was kind of silly, the stuff they do. Nevertheless, Ben Johnson, proven offensive guy. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if he can fix Caleb Williams. Obviously, DeAndre Swift is there from 2 years ago because he went from the Lions to the Eagles to the Bears.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering that right.
I think that's right.
So maybe a couple familiar faces in that room.
Yeah.
They've got stuff to work with. They just need to fix a line.
Yeah. And then looking at Aaron Glenn going to New York Jets.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening with Rodgers? What does Aaron Glenn do for the offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Is Aaron Rodgers even back? Does Aaron Rodgers, leave and go to one of these other places?
Minnesota?
Where we've got,
Does he pull the ultimate Brett Favre?
Yeah, no kidding, right? It could very well be. I don't know. I'm not sure whether I see him back in New York or not.
I don't know. And that's something between him and the owner and who knows, whoever else.
Yeah.
Aaron Glenn hopefully can fix up that defense that just didn't have life at all during the season after they had the best defensive year, at least for the organization in years.
Yeah.
They were number 1 defense 2 years ago. And they kind of shit the bed this past year with the same pieces.
Does Pete Carroll bring Russell Wilson to the Raiders?
Oh, God.
Could very well be. It seems like Pittsburgh is probably moving on from him.
You would think out of the two of them, they get rid of Russell Wilson. But who knows?
Yep.
I mean, it's going to be crazy, but that's right. That's a thought, is that what happens if Russell Wilson's wearing black and gray in Oakland or Las Vegas?
Yeah, exactly right.
And how mad are those fans going to be that he's making the same mistake again?
Yeah.
Please bring Russell Wilson to the Raiders. I would love to beat him twice a year.
I mean, he knows what Pete Carroll wants to do, and they get along, right?
Maybe a goodbye tour for Russell Wilson, 2 years with the Raiders training a quarterback. But
could be.
Aiden O'Connell really hasn't been that bad. He just hasn't had a team around him either.
Yeah, there's that true. But now you got
top tight ends.
Now you got Tom Brady in the mix with Pete Carroll, so there's going to be some shit change in there.
I'm confident between Pete Carroll and Tom Brady they can figure something out, and then Mark Davis can just look pretty with his bowl cut.
Kellen Moore to the Saints just came out before we came on the air.
Yes.
And that was the remaining job. Mike McCarthy decided that he was done with the coaching search for this season and says he's packing it in until next year.
Which might not be the worst case scenario because you don't know what jobs that have a little bit brighter outlook might open up after this next season.
Yeah. And Kellen Moore, deservedly so, won't have Saquon Barkley in New Orleans, but he does deserve the opportunity, I would say, based on what they've done in Philly the last 2 years. And we'll see what he does down there with New Orleans. Does he continue on with Derek Carr?
Right.
Does he move on with Spencer Rattler and maybe another draft pick? And we'll find out.
Yes, and we'll have to figure out if that. Did you actually see that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually heard it on the radio driving here.
Okay.
On NFL radio.
Heck yeah. Well, that'll be exciting for the Saints. I think that'll end up being a good pickup.
I think so.
He's had a great time when he was with the Cowboys, the Chargers, and obviously the Eagles.
Yeah.
The Eagles was a different story, and that's what I was curious about before the season started, is he didn't have Herbert or Dak Prescott to throw the ball and be able to bomb it downfield, but he worked out just fine with Saquon.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of completes offensively. I'm like, okay, he's a good coach, without a doubt.
Yeah, it goes to show you if you got a good GM that gets you the groceries, as Bill Parcells used to say it, as long as you got the players there, the X's and O's, you can make that work.
Yes.
If you don't have any talent, you're going to be screwed no matter what you run.
Right, and who knows what happens with Derek Carr down there and everything else. But he'll have to figure that out, I guess, after the Super Bowl.
Yep, exactly right.
Last coaching change that we could think about off the top of our head, Liam Cohen to the Jaguars. And I don't know if I can do the impersonation of it just right, but Duval.
What was that?
So in his press conference, he was being a goofball, I guess. And at some point, he decided to let one fly. And with no one around, he kind of
This got funky with the camera.
He got a little funky with the camera. And it almost felt like halfway through that, his face told you that he messed up, but he was too committed, so you can't back out of it at that point.
What the hell is Duval?
It's the county. It's what Jaguars fans yell.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's actually their thing is they just yell Duval. But he said it in such kind of a weird way. Gave off terrible vibes out of the gate. And, we've seen goofball pressers before. Nick Sirianni talking about random shit with flowers, I think. And Dan Campbell biting kneecaps, obviously. Both ended up being pretty good head coaches.
Reminds me a little bit of that Alabama commercial, Dr. Pepper, I think.
Yeah.
Where he says, "High tide."
Yeah. It gave a little bit of a Dr. Pepper energy.
Yikes.
And then they post the social media people once again at the Jaguars posted him walking into his head coaching offense, acting a little bit like a bimbo is probably the best way I'd describe it. Very quirky guy.
He's a quirky dude. Just watching him on the sidelines.
And obviously the way it ended with the Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he was back, and then he was gone.
And then he didn't call anybody from Tampa Bay for an entire day while they're figuring out what's going on. And then he's in Jackson. He's in Duval.
He's got some very odd personable skills there.
Yes, and quirky works in the NFL because I truly think you have to be a little bit touched by the tism in order to be really good with numbers. But
touched by the tism, eh?
I think the good Lord touched him with the tism a little bit. It's kind of the vibe I was getting because his eyes, they're looking around too much for something that's not there.
I need to get some popcorn and go back on YouTube and watch this press conference.
I think you might.
Duval.
No, but it didn't even have it was higher pitched than that.
Really?
So it didn't even give off any sort of energy. It was like his head was just kind of it was terrible. You have to watch it back, see if I did it justice.
Macy, if you're watching this, good luck with your new head coach and Jaguar fan. Yeah.
I mean, and he's done a good job with Baker, and he's been around the NFL and I think college too every year for the last 4 or 5 years. But odd dude. We'll see how the Jaguars do. I'm gonna take a leap of faith here and guess that the Jaguars players are gonna have to see something from him to believe in him.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, Baker did okay this year.
Yeah,
he did great. Baker did great. I'm not convinced he did great. You know what I mean? So
yeah, right.
Who knows?
Precisely. Last thing we want to hit on that I think of.
Yeah.
Senior Bowl preparations going on this week. Senior Bowl is on Saturday.
Yep.
And essentially the Senior Bowl kicks off the start of the scouting for the draft season. Right. So it's a very exciting time. Actually, it's warming up a little bit outside. Makes you think of spring more, which makes me think of the draft and the Senior Bowl. So great time to start looking at the talent out there and thinking about where your team's picking in the draft and what position they might need to go after. So.
Yeah, and you see some great guys in the Senior Bowl that maybe didn't get the spotlight during the regular season that end up being, like everybody's surprise, very good. And, who knows, when it comes draft time, we'll obviously be giving out Kevin's mock draft that he loves the most. Pretty accurate on that.
I'm about 35 mock drafts in, so I'm starting to compile my my favorite players and favorite spots, and so we'll see what happens there.
If you stayed long enough in this video, one pick to give out, Dallas Goedert. His line has already moved from 46.5 yards in the Super Bowl to 50.5. I recommend taking him his over yards if it's under 50. It's tough to get. I got it at 45 early on when the Super Bowl odds came out, but if you can get it under 50.5 yards, I would take it.
That guy seems to always catch like one ball for like a significant portion of his yardage, right?
Yes.
He somehow breaks loose one play a game.
The Chiefs have given up, I think, the third most yards to tight ends this past season.
Huh.
So we'll get into it more next week. I've already started compiling my list of bets I will be handing out for the Super Bowl.
There'll be a bunch, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The account.
Excellent.
We'll have plenty of picks, and we'll go over the game in detail next week. Next week will probably only be the Super Bowl, to be honest.
That's what we'll be talking about, just the Super Bowl.
And, this will kind of fill the gap in between. Got some coaching talk in along with the recap, and hope everyone has a great week.
Excellent.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Cover everything?
I think so.
All right. Goodbye.